Hello and welcome to the Hometown Church Podcast. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jesse Roskamp, and today we have a very special episode for you all. As you've probably heard, if you are plugged into anything hometown related over the last few weeks, coming up in just a couple of weeks is our annual mission to our city. Now, MTOC is a local mission trip that we do as a church every single year where we leave the building, we go out and we try to bring the gospel to the people around us. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking ahead to MTOC with some mission-focused episodes. And I have been super excited about this episode in particular for a while now. About 2 months ago, we sent a mission team to Milan, Italy to work alongside of some of our mission partners at Refugio Church, led by Pastor Frank Apisa and his wife, Pam, as well as missionaries Justin and Amanda Latonen, who moved to Milan several years ago to help build the church there and bring the gospel to the people of Italy. Now, I was fortunate enough to be a part of this team, and today we have assembled all 9 members of that team to share some reflections and lessons learned from our time together in Italy. And so before we hear from them, I wanted to share a little bit about the goal of the trip and lay out kind of the landscape of the week for you guys, give you all a little bit of perspective, and then we'll hear from each person and what they thought about the trip and what they kind of learned from it. And then at the end, I'll share some of my own reflections from the trip. And so with all that, it is going to be a little bit longer of an episode, so I hope you stick around for the whole thing. I think it's going to be worth it. So our main focus on the trip was to connect with the students at Bicocca University in Milan. The church there runs a weekly program called English Clubs where students get to come and practice their English, which is really helpful for them in trying to find jobs after school. Now, a few times a year, they'll have a team come out from a variety of church partners from all over the country to host a week-long English club where students get to interact with real Americans to practice their English throughout the week. This also gives us the opportunity to meet and talk with these students and develop relationships with them over the course of the week in hopes of finding an opportunity to possibly share the gospel with them and get them connected to the church there. So we left for Italy on Friday, May 9th, and arrived late in the afternoon on Saturday, the 10th. We were met by Frank at the airport, who arranged to have us picked up in a van, and we were driven to the Latonen's house, where they were gracious enough to host us, the entire team, for the whole week, all 9 of us. It was great. And so on Sunday, we got to attend a church service at Le Refugio, where Pastor Mike got to speak on the cost of discipleship. Then we spent the rest of the day getting ready for the week and enjoying a nice home-cooked meal by a couple connected to the church there who came over and taught us an authentic Italian recipe. Now, Monday through Friday was kind of the bulk of our trip. We would spend the morning with an extended time with the Lord in worship and prayer and had a devotional teaching by one of the members of the team. Then we'd go on to have lunch and get ready for English clubs. The clubs started late in the afternoon, and students would come, and we'd try to interact with them right away, get them connected, get to know them as much as possible before the activity started. Then we would split into 3 groups based on their skill level, and we'd go through different activities with the groups that we had planned in advance to help them practice their English. After that, we'd come back together as a big group and enjoy some snacks and more casual conversation before a big group activity at the end and discussion. The activities ranged from skits to games to conversation starters, but at the end of the group, we'd always go out for dinner, and we'd invite the students to come along with us that were interested in joining. And we always have a few that would tag along, and this is usually where the best conversations were had at the end of the day. Then on Saturday, after a full week of getting to know the students, we took a trip to the city of Torino. We rode the train and bought tickets for whichever students wanted to join us as a last opportunity to spend time with them and connect with them. Then on Sunday, May 18th, we packed up and made our way back to Minnesota, arriving home late in the afternoon. It was a wonderful trip, and I can't wait for you guys to hear some of the stories from the team. So without further ado, here is your 2025 Italy mission team.
Hi, my name is Mike Langlois. I'm campus pastor at our Lakeville location, and we're going to talk about Italy today, a subject I'm pretty passionate about, so looking forward to it. So in 2004, I was at a pastor's conference, and there was this guy that went up on stage. He was talking about Italy and what was going on there. He was a missionary from the States that had moved there, And he was talking about how there are less than 2% evangelicals in the whole country. And so the need is great for an evangelical presence, people that were willing to go and share the gospel. And he talked about faith and believing God for big things, and their devotion to prayer and trusting that God was going to do something special through them. And I remember after he got done, I got to meet this guy. I got to go up and introduce myself. So I did that. I introduced myself to Frank Apisa, and said, hey, would you ever be interested in us bringing a short-term mission team over to Torino, which is where they were located? And he said, we would love that. And so that began around 2005. We took our first team there, and we've taken a team almost every year except for COVID to support that church, be there, get to know those guys, help them in the mission that they have to reach Italy with the gospel. One other thing I would say is Frank and I have become great friends of 20 years of knowing each other. We love each other very much. We think a lot alike. We have the same passion to see God build his church and to be a part of it. So it's been awesome to be friends with Frank and to be his brother in the Lord. And we support one another with monthly calls and just general encouragement and prayer support. So it's been awesome being partnered with them. Yeah, so what did the Lord put on my heart for this year? I've done over a dozen trips to Italy, and this year was a little bit different for me. God gave me a promise verse, and that's one of the things that we ask each of the team members to do, is ask God for a promise verse. And my verse was John 15:16, and this is Jesus speaking. He said, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. So the thing that hit me was the fruit that will last, that we would go, and we have gone many times and planted seeds. We've shared the gospel. We've talked with people, had great spiritual conversations. But oftentimes those students that we were connecting with wouldn't stick. They wouldn't stay with the church after we left. And so I was just really burdened by asking God for this promise that there would be fruit, there would be people who would become disciples of Jesus, and they would stay. They would stay with the church, and they would be part of making disciples and reaching Italy with the gospel. And we saw some of that, and it was pretty exciting. The other piece in this is just that Jesus says, whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. So that's that prayer piece that is so critical for Frank, and it has been for us as we've taken teams to really have people praying, lots of people praying for us. We're praying, we're asking God for big things, and we're seeing him answer. Yeah, how was this year's trip different than previous years? Every trip is different because it's a different team. I'm different because God's changing me. The students that we interact with are different. So every year it's different. But here's something I have seen over the last 3 years, and that is a greater hunger and desire to have spiritual conversations, to talk about God, to be open to talking about their lives and how God fits into their lives. And we saw that again this year. It's interesting. At the beginning of English clubs, each day, one of the church members got up front and said, these guys are Christians. They're going to talk to you about God. And if you don't want to talk to them about God, you can just tell them and they won't bother you. But we didn't have that happen. I don't remember if we had anybody that said, I don't want to talk about God. So it was neat to see that this year as a continuation of the last couple of years, just more openness to the gospel. So what was the most exciting part of this trip? I think what was special for me with this team was just seeing them so focused and united. I really felt like this team was maybe one of the most united teams that I've ever taken. We were truly one, and supporting one another and encouraging one another and working as a unit. And that was pretty exciting. The other thing that was really amazing and kind of an answer to the prayer that we had been praying, and the promise verse that God gave me, is to see 2 young men cross from death to life and commit themselves to following Jesus. and one was a young Italian man, one was a man from another country. And it was exciting to see God moving in their life in such a way that at that specific time, we saw them give their life to Jesus. So those were a couple exciting things for me. So what was the hardest part of the trip? Well, I think the hardest part was that a couple weeks before the trip, Pam Apisa, Frank's wife, had fallen, broke her wrist and broke her nose. And so she was recovering. And then Frank was sick. And so they weren't able to participate in ways that they typically do. Usually they're at the center of all the activity. They have a lot of life, a lot of encouragement, and they just inspire you. They're infectious. They just add such value to the team and the whole week. And they weren't able to be with us as much as typically they would be. So that was probably the hardest thing for me. So why should somebody come next year? I remember at that pastor's conference when I first met Frank, and he shared from Matthew chapter 9 about how Jesus said that the harvest was plentiful, but the workers are few. And that's absolutely true in Italy. And so I think it's God's call for us to go to all the nations and share the gospel. And Italy can be one of those places. I think the other thing that is exciting about going on one of these trips, and I think if you talk to the people that have gone, is God changes you. He changes you. He grows you. It's like a fast grow time period where you're on mission, you're focused, and you just grow in your faith and your trust in God. And it's an exciting time. We have a ton of fun as well, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing to go. I would love for you to pray about going. We'll be starting to pray over that trip here soon and making plans. So come and join us. Let's go reach Italy with the gospel.
Sure. Hi, I'm Danielle Jacobsen. I have been going to the Lakeville campus for a little over 2 years now. Okay, so what brought me to Italy? It actually kind of goes back to when I was 12. I was reading a Christian book series called the Viking Quest series. And it was about a girl in Ireland who climbed a mountain every morning and looked out over the ocean and prayed and said, God, I want to know what's beyond that ocean. And a couple years later, she actually got abducted by Vikings and ended up traveling around the world as a slave. Now, she prayed to God. She said, God, I know that I told you I wanted to go and see what was beyond the ocean, but I didn't know that this is how I would do it. And God said, I will call you, or I have called you to be a light unto the nations. And I knew that that was for me. So at the age of 12, I knew that through this book series, God had called me to be a missionary. So when Mike asked me about going to the missions trip last year, it kind of was sudden, and I hadn't really put much thought into it, but I looked at him and I said, you know what, I'll go next year. And before I knew it, a year came around and the opportunity arose again. And I knew, thinking back on what God had called me to do when I was 12, I knew that it was the right thing to do. Yeah, I think the most exciting part of the trip was the countless possibilities for making relationships and friendships, and how many different ways there were to go about doing that. I remember one night it was raining and we were at an Indian restaurant, and I just decided that I wanted to go dance in the rain. And I ended up going out myself a couple times before I had some others join me. But like little memories like that where you can build relationships off of an impulse, something random, something fun. And now that the person that ran out in the rain with me, we're still connected. We still talk. The relationship formed when it actually started that morning when we went to English club. She was one of the people who was more open and curious about our faith, knowing that it had been announced that we were Christians, and willing and open to talking about it. And so I had some conversation with her, but it didn't really go super far. And then she decided to come with us to the restaurant. And I had gone out and danced in the rain a couple of times by myself. I think, in all honesty, I just didn't really have much to like talk about that night, and I wasn't really sitting next to any female students, and so I kind of, I think I just got a little, I was lacking in stimulation, and I saw the rain, and I was like, what better opportunity to make a memory than say that I danced in the rain in Italy? So I went out and did that, and everybody was like, oh, here goes Danielle again. And finally, after like the second time, I decided, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm, soaking wet. I'll sit down. And the girl that I had talked to earlier that day in English club came up to me and she said, would you be willing to dance in the rain with me? Like what you did earlier? Can we do it again? I was like, of course. So we ran out, and it's the center of this. We were off to the side of a plaza. And so we ran from the restaurant all the way to the staircases on the other side. And then we kind of ran back and ran in between some trees. And we ended up going again with another person. And this was probably in the span of, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. So we were soaking wet, but we had a guy join us. And he just started like booking it on the way back. And he lost his footing a little bit, tripped, and ended up like sliding a little bit, but got right back up and kept running. Anyway, when we got back to under the awning, I realized that someone had actually been recording a video of us running. And she asked for my Instagram name, and I was able to read the caption that she was putting on under this video. And it said, I deserve friends like this. And I thought of something so simple as being free and running into the rain with someone. I didn't really think that it would have an impact. But it really allowed me to kind of see the lack of deeper connection, being that someone you didn't really know very well cared so deeply for you. And that was beautiful. So for me, the hardest part of the trip was letting go of an addiction that I've struggled with for 8 years. I've struggled with nicotine and vaping for 8 years. And I knew that going on this trip and representing our church and Jesus, I didn't want to carry that addiction with me. And so a week before we left, I decided that I was going to quit and start that process. And so being on the trip was definitely challenging, where the culture is a little bit different there. So smoking and vaping is so frequent and so common among the people there. So everywhere we walked, there was smoking, someone smoking or someone vaping. And so that was definitely challenging. And then we were constantly busy all day, every day. And so making sure that I had a continuous good attitude about what we were doing, no matter what I was going through personally, was really challenging. So the Lord, throughout this trip, the Lord really taught me that through anything and everything, I need to give him my struggles and rely on him. It was probably one of the most challenging things I've done in several years, not using nicotine. And in the times that I really wanted to, I felt God's arms around me. telling me that it was okay. And then instead of relying on this addiction that I've relied on to keep me calm in high stress situations, to help me overcome certain emotions when I don't know how to express them right, God said, I'm here. And instead of relying on that, you can rely on me, and I'll teach you and I'll guide you on how to live the life that I want you to live in the way that I want you to live it. With as far as my addiction since coming back, one of the things that I was afraid of is going right back and going home and picking that vape back up after almost 2 weeks of just nicotine patches and nicotine gum. And unfortunately, when I got back, that's what I did. I picked it up. But the cool thing about it is that in journeys where you are working to overcome an addiction or a struggle or something that you've really been working on, when you fall, it's not a failure. It's about getting back up and continuing the journey. So if I were to get home and say, you know what, that was it, I went on my trip, I worshiped the Lord in that way and giving up my addiction, and now I'm back home and I can pick it back up and I'm just going to leave it at that, then that would be a failure. But instead of staying down when you get knocked down, it's a matter of, are you going to stand back up and keep trying again? And so I have continued to use nicotine gum and nicotine patches, and I have set a schedule limiting myself to certain times of the day for if I really am struggling with the addiction. However, as it's been a little over a month now that I've been actually attacking this addiction, I have seen a lot of progress, and I'm excited to start making steps going forward so that it's every day that I am relying on God for my help, for the help that I need, instead of going to a substance that the world has provided me with. If I could summarize this trip in one word or phrase, it would be that when you rely on Jesus for everything, he supplies everything. Anything you'll ever need.
My name is Zelphia Brown. I attend Hometown Lakeville, and I've been attending Hometown Lakeville / Evergreen for, I think, the last 24 years or so. My husband and I decided to go on the trip this year. I'm married to Noah Brown, and doing international missions was something that we had talked about quite a bit when we were dating. It was something that I had experience in. I had done a couple trips through Hometown throughout my kind of teenage college years, but Noah hadn't had that experience. And that was something that was important to us. We were considering, and still are to some degree, what international missions might look like for us in the future. We both have training in medical backgrounds, so those are very applicable skills, kind of anywhere and everywhere. But we got married in the fall of 2019, and so pretty quickly after we got married, it was COVID hit, so there was no chance. We weren't doing anything for a while, and then after kind of the first wave of COVID, Noah started grad school, so we weren't really going anywhere for a while then. But it's still something that we had a desire to do, and we were just waiting for the right timing, the right opportunity. And Mike asked us to go last year. We had had some of those conversations. We're really seriously considering it, but timing, funding, jobs, none of it quite lined up. And it was I feel like it was a pretty easy no last year. But time came around to plan it again, and Mike came up to us again and was like, "You guys ready?" And we said, "We'll think about it." And so we did. And I was very hesitant, honestly. It was one that, even though it had been on our radar, it wasn't something that I had, I wouldn't say a pressing desire to go back. I had been on the Italy trip once before, I think in 2017. And it was a phenomenal experience. Like, I saw some really cool things. It was kind of a formative experience as part of my college years. But it wasn't something that was super, super high on the priority list. And I am very detail-oriented. I love to plan, and I love to have all the answers, like ABC, all the way down through the alphabet. And we didn't have any of that when Mike asked us. So I was very hesitant. I wanted a lot more confirmation. But as we talked about it and as we prayed, it was evident that it was very heavy on Noah's heart to go. It was something that was very motivating. He was hearing very clearly that this is something we're supposed to do. And I think through the process, even when we didn't have all of the logistical questions answered, Noah kept bringing it back to, this is something that's important to us. This is something that we've wanted to do. And kind of bringing that to the forefront is like, yes, this is something that we believe God has asked us to do as a couple, and this is a really good way to honor that. Like, it's not a commitment we made before God necessarily, but it's something that we really wanted to pivot to and focus to, especially now that we're kind of both out of school for a minute and established, and there's not a raging global pandemic happening. So that was kind of what put it over the edge for me, is like, yes, this is something that's important to us. This is something that we believe God has called us to as part of our marriage. It's not just something that we have individual desires to do. And it's a way that we can honor him and use our gifts in a lot of different circumstances. I really struggle with the question of how did the Lord use me as an individual? That's a really hard one for me to answer, because I feel like to some extent I'm not going to know that this side of heaven. I hope, it is my hope, that I was able to use my knowledge and my background, my many, many years of following Christ, to just be an example. I really enjoy connecting with, especially the young women that are students. I feel like I spent so much time in their shoes, doing both my undergraduate and graduate programs, that I'm like, yes, I know what it's like to be in school. I know what it's like to have a million things going on all the time. But that there's still an opportunity for genuine connection there. So I really hope that's how I was used. But that's also one that I'm content to wait and hear, I think, on the other side. Ooh. This year's experience was really different from my previous experience. As far as the general outline of the trip, that was pretty similar. Like, English clubs are going to look like English clubs. The activities are going to have kind of the same feel. There's a similar cadence to the week. But a couple of things stood out to me as being really different. One is that the teams are totally different. Obviously, Mike led the team last time I went, but that's the only similarity. It was a totally new group of people. We stayed in a totally different place. There's a totally different group of people that are part of the church now in Milan. And so we're interacting with kind of the home team differently. And I also think I've grown up a lot. Last time I went was, 2017, so that's 8-9 years ago. And I was still in college. We had a very young group last time. It was very much a college age, going to do college age activities. And I think I've grown in wisdom and experience and life experience since then. But I also feel like this group, I have struggled, like, honestly, really hard to put into words. But this group was different. Like, we had a different, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like we didn't even leave Minneapolis yet. Like, I think we were getting on the plane, and it was a different atmosphere. It was a different, like, click in, put your seatbelts on, we're ready to go. And it was a level of unity and mission focus that I don't think I've experienced before on any mission trip. Not that they were bad. They were all wonderful. Like, I haven't been on a bad mission trip. But this one was unique. There was something that was so binding and unifying, and very much eyes focused on what's important. That was like very, very, it was encouraging. It was building up. It was faith reinforcing, I think, to be part of that. I love the question of how we use this as a couple. I do think we were the token married couple. That's what I got to say, is we were the only married couple on the trip that was going together. And so I think that's always a unique opportunity to be an example of marriage, and hopefully like a healthy example of marriage. Obviously to people on our team, but then also to students who may not have those type of examples, where we're still relatively young in our marriage, but a Christ-centered, mission-focused marriage. I do think that's unique. And I think we were able to work in teamwork as a couple, just as a smaller group. I do think we were able to work effectively within our larger team, but just having the communication and the knowledge that deeply of another person on a mission team, and being able to work that way together was a very new experience for me. But I think the Lord was able to use that. I also think that allowed us to make some really important connections that I don't think I would have made in the same way. Like the relationships that I was able to have, the conversations I was able to have, I don't think I would have been able to do that in the same way. But both of us being there, both of us being married, and being able to meet people together was very powerful. So one of the most exciting things that I think we were able to do as a couple is we met a couple that was attending the English clubs from Iran. The wife is doing her postdoctorate in plasma physics at Bacoka. I understood maybe like 30% of her work as she described it. And her husband is there supporting her as she's doing that professionally. Neither of them speak great English, and they are still learning Italian. They're still relatively new to being in Italy and at the university, so they saw the flyers for English clubs and thought they should give it a chance. The wife does a lot of presentations at international conferences, and there's a lot of opportunities and reasons for her to speak English. So she was looking for just ways to practice, and we were there. And Mike was telling us, so we're Justin and Amanda, part of the Italian team, that it's pretty unusual for couples to attend English clubs. There's a lot of younger people, a lot of single people. And so to have someone who's a little bit older, a little bit on the other side of the education journey, and a married couple, no less, is not typical. But the first night that we were there, kind of meeting everybody, they were in our group. So the intermediate, Noah and I were with Mike in the intermediate English group. This couple was also in that group. And during the break time, where everyone's kind of grabbing snacks, I saw them just like outside in the courtyard, clearly doing what I do when I don't know anybody, is I go find my person and I grab my snacks and I go out the door. And so I just went outside and I was like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, who are you guys? Where are you from? Learned that they were from Iran. And I think that was just, honestly, that was the connection for me, is because I love to travel. There's so many places in the world that I want to go. Obviously, that's not a country that's very open to us right now. But I was like, tell me about you. Tell me about your country. Where are you from? What is it like where you are? Like, what foods do you eat? And you've never seen two people come alive so quickly. Like within 3 minutes, I was getting Google Maps. I was getting explanations of different cities and regions. I was being shown dishes that were unique to different regions. I was getting pictures of architecture and just all of these things. And it was amazing, because it was like, this is so cool. This is something I don't know about. But it was just the start of the willingness for them to extend that and say, here's who we are, here's where we're from, and make that connection. That was lovely. And then we had the rest of the week with them. And it was so sweet. There are some people that you meet and it's like you are re-meeting them, or you've known them before. And it's like finding an old friend. And I think for me and Noah, that's very much what it felt like. We got to talk with them about everything from what do you like to cook, to where do you go on vacation, to what do you like to do for fun, to things of like, how do you think God views the world? What is it we want for the world? Where does peace come from? Obviously, since we got back from the trip, that's been a little bit more pertinent, sadly. But having and finding kind of some of those unifying desires and getting to really go deeper with, again, a couple that we have never met from a country we know virtually nothing about. And they just have the biggest, most open, most generous hearts. After kind of comparing recipes and stuff, at the end of the trip, they gifted us a little cake it's like a hockey puck size dish of saffron. After I told them, like, I've always heard about saffron, I've always wanted to cook with it, but you can't find it here or it's very expensive. They were like, nah, we got you. And so they gifted us with, from one of their hometowns, it's just a little thing of saffron. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, when we cook with it, we will send you pictures. We will get the recipes from you. Like, we'll have that exchange and that dialogue. And they're still trying to convince us that we need to visit Iran. That might be on hold for a while. But it has been just a joy to stay in touch with them and to continue to develop that friendship. They're just some people that you meet that you don't forget, and for us, they're one of them. I think the Lord taught me, first and foremost, the underlining that we are meant to live in community. We are not meant to live alone. I think everyone who's been on these trips before, like, you come home and you talk about, it's so refreshing to live in very intentional community for a week and a couple days. To, first of all, live in community and in unity of purpose with other believers in a 24/7 way that just doesn't happen when you're home. Even if you live with someone, if you're married to someone, yes, you can still be on mission, but you are waking up early in the morning and you're going to work and you have social commitments and you're trying to have people over for dinner and you've got to run to the grocery store and all of this. Versus when you're on a mission, a lot of that kind of, I feel like, just falls away and you're left with what's the most important thing? And that's pursuing Jesus together. So I think that was, again, something that I know, but it's really good to be reminded of. And then just how quickly and easily that translates to students that don't have that type of community. It is so incredibly obvious, like, just the need for not just relationship, but deep and meaningful and intentional relationship that just doesn't seem like it always translates well, doesn't seem like it always is part of their daily life. And so to be able to go and live in that intentional community and then model that intentional community, like, that's just something that I feel like I learn over and over again is so important, because we are not meant to live life alone. Like, we are meant to live life in community with other believers who can help us and support us and cover our weaknesses and build up our strengths, and point us closer to God. The hardest part of the trip for me was I have social battery issues. I am an introvert. I would prefer usually to be alone and quiet and talking to people, especially people that I don't know or don't know well, on kind of that surface level chit chat, drains me quickly, and can leave me really cranky. So for me, that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges is, first of all, like, managing that and just being aware of it and kind of keeping an eye on my social battery. Secondly, remembering to lean on the Lord for support and being like, okay, this isn't going to come from me today. This is going to come from God and what he can give me. This is not by my own strength. And I think that was just my main challenge, is not getting too cranky with it and remembering that The joy of the Lord is my strength. If someone was to consider going on this trip next year, I would tell them, obviously pray about it, but I would also encourage them to talk with somebody who knows their heart really well. I think for me, that was kind of what really helped me this year, is talking with Noah and having him remind me of the things that are important to me and the things that God has asked me to do as an individual and as a couple. Obviously, you can do that if you're married, but if you're single, like, find someone who knows you and can remind you of the things that you've communicated. Secondly, I would say brush up on learning a couple words in Italian. It's really fun. We mangle it, we butcher it, but it's really fun to kind of have people teach it back to you, and it can be a good bridge, especially when you're teaching English, to have a couple words that can go both ways. And lastly, I think I would just encourage people to listen closely to what the Lord is telling them. Get in tune with the Holy Spirit and be willing to listen, because that's important in day-to-day life. That for sure doesn't go away, but it's also really, really, really important on a mission. And so it's a spiritual muscle. Got to start working it out.
So my name is Noah Brown. I've been an attender of Hometown/Evergreen for over 29 years, and I'm 28 years old because I attended while I was still in the womb. One of the things that brought us to Italy is Mike had asked us in 2024 if we had wanted to go on the mission trip, and the timing and the schedules didn't really work out for both mine and Zelph's job. And so he said, we'll try and plan for next year. And so that was a big part of it. And then just as we were getting to that time where we had to commit, say, yes, we're going to go, there was a lot going on in our hearts where I felt very strongly that we should go. And then we both had the hesitation in regards to like cost and things like that. But we went because Mike had asked us. And then as we had reflected on that question and us planning for it, we felt like the Lord was leading us and guiding us into going, like that God was asking us to go. So we went. How did the Lord use me on the trip? As I've reflected on it and gone back through it in my mind, there's lots of things that I've realized. One of the things that I realized is just how he was using me to really engage with students, engage with their questions, be like honest and open to those questions and not like shut them down, really engage with their curiosity and use that as a way to show how we as Christians interact with the world, that we're not just in our own little thing doing our own acts of worship with God, but we're also called to be out in the world and engage with the world and respond to the world's questions, because that's what Jesus did. So just a lot of those conversations that I had with students in regards to questions with what's going on in the state of the world, and how things within the church that were confusing to them, like all of the rituals that are in Catholicism, or how do they practice in a non-Catholic Christian environment and things like that. So really being able to engage with those questions, having grown up in Hometown and Evergreen, and having the background that I have in studying how some of those things work, it was just one of those ways that I felt prepared by God beforehand to like answer those questions and engage with those conversations in a meaningful way with their curiosity, and really kind of try and get them to step closer to who God is and what Jesus has done for us. Some of the questions that I was asked are, how do we view things like, is it ethical to tip? And so being able to engage with that. So that's like how we engage with the world. And then other questions that were more spiritual is like, I was baptized as a baby. Do I have to get rebaptized if I give like get saved later in life and things like that? So sorry, I bumped the mic. And so there are like questions like that I was able to address and use how we view things. Like, like the fact that baptism is an expression of giving your faith in Christ. It's not something that's done for you when you're unable to make that decision to follow Christ. Yeah, and some of the ways that we felt like God was able to use Zelphia and I's a relationship and marriage is a lot of ways to engage deeper with each other. We were really intentional about kind of going on dates every morning to go get coffee and connect and make sure we were supporting each other as best we can. The other ways that we recognize that God used us on the trip is group support as well. It was really a blessing to be able to lead worship with her and lead the rest of the group in worship, and being able to speak into that and pray through that and do that. Other ways that we were used as a couple in engaging with the students is that we did have a couple join the group, and we were able to connect with them really closely and really deeply, and we're still maintaining connection with them. We're still in contact with them. And so I think our unique setting as being a married couple was a kind of a bridge to meeting and connecting with them as strongly as we did. There's just ways in which we work well together, where I am weak, she kind of helps support me in that, and where she is weak, I can help support her in those things. And so really just seeing how we work well together in connecting with people and meeting with people and just engaging with people was really sweet to see. Yeah, so the couple that we were able to connect with, that was kind of a unique situation. Even Mike was saying that was kind of unique to have a couple attend the English club, because these are mostly young college students who aren't quite in that sort of relationship. But this was a couple who Italian wasn't really their first language and English wasn't their first language. So they wanted an opportunity to together practice both. And so they, the wife was doing a postdoctorate in plasma physics, so way above what I would be able to explain to you what that is. And her husband was there, and he owns shops in another country where they make home goods like cupboards and things like that. So they were there, and we got to connect with them because they were in our class. So that was another like coincidence that's a God thing, because we were a couple in a class, and in our class was another couple, which is like not always a for sure thing. So we were able to connect with them, ask more about their families and how they got to where they are here in Italy. And so we got to learn all about their hearts and desires. And it was really, really cool to connect, because they both have a heart for seeing what God wants to see in the world. And so that was just our opportunity and our door to engage in spiritual conversations with them about how God sees the world and how he works in the world to take what is bad and turn it into good. And even now, as we continue to connect, the husband will still send me lots of videos of music, and it will be anything from this really soulful, like solo performance to and then 5 minutes later, he'll send me like a thing of music that's just dance party music. And so it's kind of eclectic. It's a lot of fun, but we still engage in really deep, thoughtful conversations. And we just tried to make food the way that they make food in their home. And so we were on the phone with them 7 hours away in a different country, as they were kind of giving us instruction on how to prepare different parts of the meal and things like that. So it's just been really cool to continue to connect and share our hearts with them, even after we've gotten home. So I think the Lord was teaching me on this trip that he makes himself known. One of the things that I was noticing, and as I was reflecting on, is it just felt like God was there before us, and that we were reaping a harvest we didn't sow. There was a lot of groundwork laid by previous teams and by Frank and Pam and Justin and Amanda that really set the stage for what we were doing and how we were able to do it. And he's making himself known, and as I was mentioning earlier, with just their curiosity. All of these students are curious about the faith that we were demonstrating and the faith that they had seen. A lot of those students this was not their first time attending English clubs, so a lot of them had questions related to what they had seen in previous groups and what they continued to see in Frank and Pam and Justin and Amanda. So this is one of the things he was teaching, is he makes himself known, and that us responding to other people's curiosity about him and about how the world works and how we engage with the world is just another opportunity for us to be the hands and feet and mouth of Jesus in the world. Second thing is, I'm actually continuing on an idea that was presented during one of the morning devotionals, and that is that salvation is not just then, it's here and now. Like heaven is not just then, it's here and now. It's being made in us, and we are being renewed day by day. Salvation is not just for when we die, but it's for the here and now. We are being made new into the people of God, from darkness to light. And that doesn't start when we die. It starts when we place our faith in Christ and being continually renewed day by day, even as we wait for the day when we get to see him face to face. The hardest part of the trip, and this is going to be really cliche, but it's coming home. It was leaving all of those connections and friends that we had made. It was leaving a period of time where we were entirely devoting ourselves to one thing, and that was to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world to these students, and just how refreshing and engaging that was. I also didn't make it easier on myself because I went to work the next day. But what I'm reflecting on is that it actually helped the momentum because I didn't have a break. And so while that was very challenging and I probably should have done it differently for my flesh, for my spirit and my heart, it's actually been really good because there wasn't a break. I've been able to take that energy and actually just turn it instead of having it stop and then restarting with a different energy coming home. So that was probably the hardest, was coming home and just trying to figure that out. So the most exciting parts of the trip for me had to be kind of what I've talked with before, is just as we were engaging with the students and having these conversations with them, it was very exciting to learn more about God and what he's doing in Italy, learn more about what he's doing in my life and the life of the team members that went with us. Like, it was just the conversations that I was having with people, whether that was Frank and Pam or Justin and Amanda or any of the other members of the team or the students, getting to know them, their hearts, their curiosity for things. That was all very exciting. And what do I say to someone who's considering going next year? Really pray about it, connect with the Lord about it. He'll show you what he would want you to do for that situation. He will prepare you for that situation. If you have any hesitations that are related to physical needs, I would say let those not be a barrier to going. But if you have concerns about your own heart or about your own stance and about how you're going in terms of why you're going, then that would be where I'd let that hesitation kind of dig deeper into that and figure that out. But I would say if you're thinking of going and your only barriers are physical needs, really kind of depend on him. When we were, part of our struggle in committing to it was the financial burden that it would put on us, and that we were going to then ask to share with other people. And we really, in the middle of struggling with that, we're like, we're not going to let that be a decision maker in our decision to go, or a defining point in our decision to go. And so we trusted God with that, and he came through in spades. So.
Yes, my name is Kitt Guerrier. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Hometown Church. So I'm here to hang out with Jesse. Oh, yes, several years ago, many years ago, I've been asked many times to go with Mike, and just can never go with the timing, never been perfect with my job. And I was coaching and also counseling at the school system. And then when I became a pastor at the church, hometown, and just the time was not fit with my schedule. So finally, the time was right, and Mike asked, and then it was good, and I went. Well, what did the Lord teach me on this trip? It's one specific thing throughout the trip that on our way there was about timing. So in Galatians 4:4, talking about when the right time God sent Jesus. And at the trip, Mike and I, we were discussing when is the right time? How did God know that was the right time to send Jesus? Why he did not send Jesus 2,000 years later or 2,000 years earlier or 2 years later? So that was the right time. And the whole concept was, when is the right time to actually share our faith with the students? Because we went there for a purpose. The purpose was to share our faith. We spent all that money to share our faith. So sometimes for me, I was anxious, like, let's do it now. And I felt the Lord was saying, it's not the right time. So that was the thing I learned, the right time. God's timing is the perfect timing. So for me, it was trying to figure out the right time. So throughout the week, it was more me being a friend to those that I met, hang out. It was they know who I am. They know the purpose of the trip, but it wasn't the right time for me to say anything yet. When the right time came, it went well. It went well. So throughout the week, the joke was short hands. Bracine colte, that's the word, bracine colte. Bracine colte, it's a short arm. In other words, shorthand for cheap people. So throughout the week, that was the saying. That was the thing. That was the inside joke for lack of words. The inside joke that we are cheap every time we go somewhere. Everybody bring their arm up simply means who's paying. So throughout that's become the thing for Friday that led to Friday when we actually share our faith with one of the students. Time was running out. So right now we only had 2 days left. It was Friday and Saturday. So these young men, as a group of boys, Friday was going to be the last time we seen them. So we just start talking about our faith, asking the questions, and giving the bracelets. One particular example, there's one young man that we've been talking about, actually 3 of them. We've been friends, all of us been connecting with these 3 young men throughout the week. And Friday, those guys decided to take us for coffee. And again, the joke came about, who's paying? Everybody have short arm, but those guys decided they're going to come together and pay for our coffee and teach us how to drink coffee correctly, the Italian way. It was funny, but throughout the process, the gospel was shared. We tag team of sharing our faith with these young men. There were a lot of questions from them, and they asked a lot of questions. One specific young man, we did not answer his questions completely. He wanted more. He wanted his question to be answered. So throughout the night, he hung out with us until his last question was answered. Now, once his last question was answered, now we turn into him and say, now, what question? Do you have any more questions? And he said, no. And then the question to him was, now, since all your questions have been answered, then what? And he thought about it. Then he said that he has to make a decision. And then we asked him, what's stopping you from making that decision? And that night he made that decision right now to give his life to the Lord. We pray with him. And then that was the exciting part about the trip, waiting when is the right time. Yeah, it's, being Americanized me, been in this country for so long, you forgot that you are the same. And there's a lot of things with these students. We grew up the same way. It's our concept was about education, not God. We know God exists. We're not atheists, but we did not have a relationship, and we did not want a relationship with God. All we want to do is to have an education. We believe that education will get us out of this poorness that we grew up in. And I was able to connect with the students from that concept. So, and also working with students for the last 25 years make it easier for me to connect. The most exciting part of the trip was the friendship. It's crazy how we know we had a purpose. We know that. We know what the purpose is. But we were willing to put the purpose aside to develop friendships. And I think it's through these friendships that we saw what we have experienced with these young men and young women. So it was good. For me, it was Friday night. It was exciting. I'm watching a young man giving his life to the Lord, moving from death to life. That's exciting. I would advise that's a great trip to go to. It's very challenging because it challenges your faith because these folks have questions. And these questions, they want those questions to be answered. Sometimes we're thinking, okay, let's forget about the question. Let's just jump in. Well, these folks don't want to jump in unless they know what they're jumping into. So once these questions are being answered, then they were able to jump into. So I think the challenging piece would be understanding our own faith. And once we understand that, we could help someone else understand who Christ is, what this relationship with Christ is about. So I would recommend that everyone, at least once, take a trip to Italy to see what it's like.
I'm Micah Metzger. I grew up in Bloomington, hometown. Back before it was even hometown, I grew up in Evergreen. And probably about 4 years ago, I switched churches for a little while. I moved down to Florida, kind of finding who God was on my own, aside from my parents. And after all of that, the Lord kind of brought me back to hometown. So I grew up here, but I've been coming recently for the past 6 months. So I'm getting to dig deeper into who God is and be able to experience him here at hometown. So that's a little bit about me. So how I decided to come to Italy was it was a lot simpler of a process than I thought it would be. I had been trying to go to missions trips for the past 3 years. There's been a couple opportunities that I've had with some other churches, some other organizations. And weirdly enough, every time I tried to go on one, there was something very active that the Lord was stopping me, something that would happen. And it was kind of like God saying, not yet, not yet. And so when I got asked by Mike to be a part of this missions trip, it was honestly a little weirdly hard to say yes. I got the email and the immediate emotions were just like no, I don't want to get my hopes up again. I kind of felt like the Lord was just almost testing me again, which seems so weird because a missions trip's a good thing, right? But when I got the email, I prayed about it and kind of ghosted Mike. And then he emailed back to follow up and he was like, hey, last call, are you interested? And I just remember praying and I said, God, I'm just going to say yes. And I trust that you'll dictate the rest. And I said yes to him without really even knowing the details. I remember I didn't even want to look at where it was. I saw Italy, but I was like, I'm not going to see where. I'm not going to look up pictures. So really what brought me to Italy was just it was entirely God. I had the opportunity pop up and I kind of really wanted to, but I just kind of blindly said yes, and the Lord worked it all out, and Mike was super supportive in all of it, and I talked to him about my doubts, and yeah, it just like it all ended up falling into place. Yeah, so some of the tension I actually had when preparing for this trip was, I mean, I chalk it up to a lot of spiritual warfare, but I think there was a lot more into it. When I was asked to, be a part of the mission trip, I had these doubts that I expressed, and it honestly led to a lot of confusion, a lot of weird anger. I had this weird tension where like I would anytime I would talk about the missions trip, it was almost like I was angry, and I couldn't really express it. I like couldn't put it into words, and honestly still have a hard time putting it into words. But like my parents would ask me like, "Oh, I heard you got invited to this missions trip," or "I heard you're going on this missions trip," or friends would ask me, and like I don't even know how to explain it, but the immediate thought I had was anger. And I mean, I feel like there was a lot more at play within it, but a lot of it came from just like doubts in myself that I was supposed to be on this trip. Like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to do this yet. Maybe I'm supposed to be waiting. And there was a lot of worry and anxiety that came with it. And I almost like feel like it pushed me away a little bit from wanting to do the trip, because it was like, okay, well, anxiety is not from God. So is this actually God pushing me away? So there was a lot of really big tension when it came to actually even committing to going to this trip, because I wanted to, but I didn't know if I wanted to for the right reasons. And then I had all these attacks and things that were pulling me away. And it honestly made it really, really hard to say yes. But I mean, God worked through it for sure. And honestly, like it's weird to say, but I'm thankful that it happened, because he did grow me through it, through the challenges, through the like emotions I had. And he ended up working through those after probably like 30 people praying for me in different places, different friends. And he cleared up a lot of those anxious thoughts in my head. But there was for sure a huge tension that came up when I first thought about going on a missions trip. Honestly, I would say the hardest part on the trip was just the emotions that I was being faced with. Like, I know that's a very broad answer, but it's real. Like, there was so much fear. I'm naturally a very outspoken, talkative person, but when it came to being like, I'm not forced, that's the wrong word, but almost forced like to be talking to people, it was like, oh, well, now I'm scared. Like, now it's not naturally happening. And I almost like, I tried to fit myself into this mold, and it was so hard to talk to people. I remember it was the first 2 days, I just felt like, I should be talkative. I should be like engaging with these people. God made me this way. Like, this is natural. Like here in America, no problem at all. But it was super hard over there. Like, I don't even know why it was so hard, but it just was. Like, I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't engage with people. I felt like I had the wrong intentions. I'd like have this awkward silence and didn't know what to say. And I just like was scared of that. So there was a lot of emotions that were going on with that. There was also just like this unrestlessness that was super hard to shake. I felt like the whole time I was there, or not the whole time, but the whole first 2 days, it was just like this like anxiety within me that was kind of like bubbling up. And so when I'd go to talk to someone, it was like, even if I pushed myself to do it, I felt like I would talk to them out of a script. And I told myself, like, I would physically pray before I walked up to them, Lord, don't let me talk like a script. And then I would talk to them, and I'm like, I'm literally like reading a script. I'm not being intentional at all. So honestly, like the hardest parts were just the emotions that were making me act in a way that wasn't myself. Like, I was almost trying to act like somebody else. And so that was a huge challenge on the trip for sure. I feel like God overcame that emotion for me. I consistently had been praying, and I had been talking to a couple of the people on the trip about it and expressing it. And honestly, one thing that Mike suggested is having prayer partners for this trip, and the prayer partners would write you a letter. And I opened one of those letters the second day, and I can't even remember off the top of my head what it said, but it was basically like exactly the emotions I had been feeling, the exact doubts I had been feeling. And it was my friend, and he encouraged me, like in the letter, he's like, you got to just bring this to God. Like, don't overthink it. You are naturally super talkative. You're naturally engaging. if you try to overthink it, you're going to be acting like someone you're not. And I just remember like after reading that letter, I opened up my Bible and I just spent time like digging into God's word, digging into who he was, praying to him. I was like, God, tomorrow I'm not even going to try to like read a script. I'm not even going to try to share the gospel. I'm just going to try to love people the way that I know you've designed me to do. And like, it was almost this weird thing where like, I didn't actually have to even do anything to overcome this issue. I just had to kind of surrender and give up the idea that it's not in my power. And that helped so much, just to be able to give up all of the emotions and thoughts that I had and just put them in God's hands. And so that surrenderance just immediately flipped it. Oh, okay. So there's a lot of exciting parts about this trip. It was honestly like, it was a mind-blowing trip because I didn't know how much would actually happen on this trip. I didn't know, like, my expectations were on the ground. I was literally like, I'm going to get to talk to 3 people. One person's maybe going to hear that I follow Jesus, and that's it. Like, my expectations were on the ground. And so when I went on this trip, like, my team was so amazing, like so amazing. And Justin and Amanda over there, they're just so encouraging. And so all of this, like, this ground level standards that I had, like, immediately were raised. I just remember the first day I was there in the English clubs, we had multiple students come out to eat with us afterwards. And I just remember like them being so genuine and talkative. And it was so exciting to see how open people were to friendships there. I feel like sometimes here it's a little bit like we overthink so many things and people are closed off and all these different things that people will express towards you. But there it was just genuine people. And it was so exciting to me as an extrovert, people who would actually engage with you. So I would say like that itself was super exciting, but even deeper than that, like I got to have the opportunity to make a genuine friendship there and share the gospel. And this student I like connected with barely on the first day, like literally like said hi, got his name, and that was it. But throughout the week, like we had very genuine conversation, and like it was the craziest thing because I felt like I was back in America. Like it was just someone I actually would be friends with, and I genuinely connected with him, had really deep conversations, and immediately like I was just like trying to be as intentional as possible and giving God space to ask deep questions that were going to be challenging. And I asked some of those questions, and immediately it just flipped everything around. I had I think one conversation just like immediately switched from like kind of surface level to deep conversation. And I remember like his reaction was just laughing. He was like, huh, crazy you ask that. And like we got to dive into that, and I got to share the gospel with him in its entirety on Saturday. And he ended up giving his life to Jesus and surrendering to him. And it was like the most exciting like emotion I'd ever felt, not just because he gave his life to Christ, but because it felt like a friend. Like it felt like a friend who gave their life. It wasn't some person I met on the street and like they gave their life and it was like an achievement. It was like I just got to witness somebody who I actually care for and love turn from death to life. And like I can't even explain that emotion. Like it still has me smiling, and it's been like a month. Like it's the most exciting thing that I think has ever happened to me ever. So like, yeah, a lot of really, really cool things on the trip, but that especially was just like crazy to me. So crazy. I think there's a lot of lessons that you can learn on mission trips. But one thing I felt like the Lord really, really taught me was just the importance of rest, which is really weird because the top 2 things that I feel like he taught me was rest and how much more I can do. And so like it doesn't seem like those act together. Like I felt like the whole trip I felt like our team had no time to breathe. Like literally I looked at my screen time. I'm younger. I have a problem. I'm on my phone way too much. I looked at my screen time and it was like 20 minutes a day. And it was literally like necessary things, texting the team, taking pictures, like necessary things. And so I just remember like feeling there, like I had no time to breathe, but I also felt like I was at so much rest. Like I had so much rest on that trip. And so that's what I felt like the Lord was teaching me, is that there's a lot that I can do, but a lot of what I do here in America is not restful. It's not intentional. It's things that are very surface level. Like if I want to take a break from something, instead of going and watching a TV show, I should go and read the word for 5 minutes. It's like way less time, but it's an intentional rest that actually like uplifts and encourages me. And so like the biggest lesson I would seriously take away from this is how many opportunities I get in my day where I should have time that's empty and I fill it, and how much opportunity I get to actually fill that with something important. And so just like, that was a really like weird answer, long-winded, but essentially like there's this rest that God promises us, which is so much deeper than the rest that we get here on earth. So much deeper than like we actually choose to experience most of the time. And I felt like on this trip, he was showing me what that looked like, just a snippet, just a taste of what that looked like. And even though I had zero time to actually like sit and do nothing, I felt like I was the most rested I've ever felt before. My body was tired, but my soul was at peace. My soul was rested. So 100% think the biggest thing God was trying to drill into me is just like how important rest is in our everyday walk with faith. Yeah, I would say to someone who's wanting to go next year, I think like I could just say the stereotypical answer, like do it. It's good for you. It challenges your faith. And I hear that all the time from people, and like that's why I knew a mission trip was important, but I really didn't believe it. So I'm going to say something like different. I'm going to say do it, not because you want to, not because it's good for you, not because it's good for other people, but just do it. Like it's one of those things that you will mentally work up in your brain all these reasons not to do it, all these reasons to do it, all these reasons it could be good, it could be bad. Just do it. Like it's a commandment. It's a commandment from God to go and spread the gospel. And if you get an opportunity, like you should follow through with that. And Italy especially is such a good opportunity because it's not something that you can do and be comfortable. Like you cannot go to Italy on this missions trip and be comfortable, because you're not going and building houses. You're not going and digging wells. You're not going and doing something physical. You're doing something that is relationally draining in a good way. So if you're thinking about going and you're like, I'm not a people person, or I'm not comfortable talking to people, I'd rather go and do a service thing, like you just got to go. It's one of those things that I think is a huge commandment from the Bible, to actually be intentional with talking to people and having relationships with them. And I know it's coming from an extrovert, but like even as an introvert, like there's so many good opportunities to learn. There's so many good opportunities to see people genuinely. And I think you're going to walk away very changed if you go to Italy, not only because it's a missions trip, but because it's a place that's very similar to America. And there is not much stopping you from doing everything that you do on that missions trip here in America. And so going like shifts your mindset on how to love people and how to be intentional with people. So I would honestly I would say if you get the invite, there's no reason you should say no. If you can take off work and it stretches you to do so, just do it. There's not many reasons you shouldn't go on it. So definitely recommend Italy. I want to mention one last thing. Justin and Amanda are amazing. Very, very good people. One of the things Justin taught me, and something I've been applying since I've been back, is take some time and just do nothing. Take 10 minutes a day and do absolutely nothing. It's one thing I tried practicing while I was on the trip. I didn't have much time to do nothing, but in my quiet times, there was few seconds I would just be doing absolutely nothing. And on this missions trip, it was God teaching me how to do that. And I think it's something that'd be very effective for everyone. So I don't know, it's something that's grown me, something that Justin taught me that has been very challenging, but very, very good in my life. And I think that helped me carry out the conversations I had in Italy. So that's the last thing I want to leave you guys with, is sounds weird, but doing nothing is very, very important in your walk of faith. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Hoffman. I go to the Lakeville campus, and we've been going there for 16 years. Yeah, I've been to Italy several times, and I keep going back for a couple reasons. I feel like God has used the trips to grow me in a couple different ways, and sometimes you don't realize that that's what's happening when you feel drawn to go initially, but in retrospect, we're able to look back and see those things that He's growing us in, and I feel like I just want to take advantage of that, and it's been kind of a really beautiful experience for myself and my family. Every time that I've gone in the past, we've never seen a salvation. We've always just been a part of that sort of salvation ladder. So it was different this year because we were able to see that salvation happen, so that's kind of standing at the forefront of my mind as to what was different. I think also one of the big differences is the sort of median age of our team kind of dropped like a decade. And I feel like that was really impactful because we are connecting with and serving university age students, and to have kind of a university aged team was really a huge thing in sort of making some of those connections, which is really the whole reason that we're there, to make connections to help the church that's over there. I think the hardest part of the trip for me was, I was thinking a lot about that. Normally, leading up to these trips, the hardest part is like leaving my family, leaving my kids. I have kids that are young enough to still depend on me, and they stay home with me, and so usually the hardest part is that. This year, I think I don't feel like I felt things were hard on the trip, which was kind of like a beautiful gift. We were busier than we've ever been. Normally we have more time to sort of see things around the city as a team or maybe hang out. But this year, like, we had trouble finding time to go to grocery stores that we would typically go to. So it was busier than we ever have been. But it was, I feel like God really supported us in that area where maybe we didn't, it wasn't a struggle. That part wasn't hard. And for me as an introvert, as somebody who maybe has trouble connecting with people, or maybe I'm a little prickly sometimes, connecting with people sometimes is really hard. And I feel like that came really easy this time too. So I feel like He really kind of filled in all of those gaps. And I don't feel like this year was hard for me. It was really great. Yeah. For me, every single year, the most exciting part of all the trips are seeing how the team sort of naturally falls into their own places and giftings. I have, in general, not really known most of the team members before the trips. And especially this year, we had people from other campuses. We had, like I said, people that were maybe much younger than maybe the circles that I typically run in. And so I don't know anybody very well. But it's so amazing to see how everybody's natural gifting is used on the mission trips in ways that you wouldn't expect, and how they naturally come together. And I feel like this year in particular, people really fit together, their puzzle pieces, their gifting fit together so naturally, where we were able to connect with students and hand them off seamlessly to another person in ways that we haven't experienced in the past. So that was really, really sweet. I would say, well, first of all, I want everybody to come next year, but if I was trying to give somebody a reason to come next year, I would say one of the main things that we hear all the time are, I don't know if I feel called to go. And I feel like God has already called us to go. We're part of the Great Commission. We're called to go forth and make disciples of every nation. And so we are already called to do that. We don't necessarily have to feel a specific calling. And a lot of times, if we do feel sort of a block, I feel like in my experience, that block to not go isn't always from the Lord. For me, it was excuses to not go. And when I let those excuses go, God put everything into place. And actually, when I was thinking about going the first time, I opened up my Bible to it just fell open to Isaiah 119. It said, if you only obey me, I will give you plenty to eat. And it was him, I felt like telling me that if you will just obey me, if you will just go on this trip that I'm asking you to go on, that you have all the excuses not to go on, I'll take care of everything. And he totally did. And I feel like that can happen to a lot of us. We come up with these excuses not to go. And if we will only obey him, then we can see the blessings on the other side of it. And it has been nothing but a blessing to go on these trips. I feel like, so what has the Lord taught me kind of going forward or this year? I feel like one of the things that has kept drawing me back to this, that the Lord keeps growing me in. And every time I come back, I want to like utilize it here and utilize it for our big church mission trip for MTOC. It's something that gets pressed upon my heart, is the way that evangelism is done in Italy and with that team. And part of it is because the culture is so different, right? I've been on third world mission trips where people are desperate and they need a savior. They need somebody to help them. And it's different in Italy because people are good there, right? They have a job and they have healthcare and they have food to eat and they have housing. So it's different. Evangelizing is different there. And I think of the way that we evangelize here and the way that they evangelize there, kind of like a meal, whereas here it's a little bit like fast food, right? Where sometimes we need that. That's still nourishment. That is food for our family, food for our bodies. We live a busy life. If we don't have fast food, sometimes we don't eat that night, right? Like you're just too busy to do it. And so that is important. That's an important type of food. Where the evangelism there, I know when I went the first time that they were still evangelizing to somebody that they had been pouring into for over a decade. And so I think a little bit about that, like your grandma's Sunday dinners, right? Where she starts her dinner rolls the day before because the dough has to rise. And the roast is in the oven all day long. And there's intention and love poured into that. And it's a slow burn, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And so both of those meals are important. Both of them give nourishment. But there's something a little bit special about Grandma's Sunday dinners, right? And the love that's poured into it. And I always feel kind of convicted in that when I come back here. And it's something that I really want to get plugged into how we evangelize, how we pour into people here with that intention and the love. And I feel like God has really put that on my heart. It's something that I want to put into, what we do here and our MTOC and all of that, because I just think that's really beautiful.
Hello, I'm Ethan Hasz. I go to the Lakeville campus. I've been attending for about a year and a half now, and that's been really fun and really good. So what brought me to Italy this year? This is actually my second year. And so what was different from the first year was the first year being I felt more submitted, or like God was calling me to go on this trip more just because I was so new to the church. I was trying to be under leadership. I was trying to be submitted. I'm still trying to do those things. It was just so new to me in this new church. But it was Mike Langlois who asked me again this year. And, I didn't think it would be a bad thing to go again. And so I knew that God could use me and that he would move through me and he could teach me anything he wanted me to know. So that was a good trip for me to go on because that exactly happened, This year differed from last year in a few ways. One being that first year was like so new. Everything I kind of had culture shock because I had never been to Italy. And just the people, the food, the atmosphere, just how congested the city could feel. I'm a small town kid, so that was kind of a big thing for me, where this year, having been there previously, I was a lot more comfortable just navigating the city and being with the Laytonans and the church. And so I feel like this year differed beyond just feeling more comfortable, just feeling like I could invest more myself into the people there and have deeper connections. And of course, the first year students, some of them were returners. And so I was able to continue those relationships. And that was really, really cool. I think this year, God taught me specifically submittance to Him and His plans and His cadence. Because it's not always about our pacing or when we show up, or we can't force people to come to Christ, but we are planting seeds. And so, similar to last year, there was that pacing element where it was like, I really want to see somebody come to Christ. And, we did see fruit this year, which was amazing. And we trusted last year for that as well. And it's still growing. And so I feel like I learned to be submitted in different ways to the missionary team, to my other fellow missionaries, like how can I serve you and how can I help you to facilitate your part on this journey and be a tool to you and not just have it be about me or what can I get from this experience. It was more about like, how can I be a vessel or have my hands open. And so that was really cool. I'll say last year, the hardest part of the trip was actually coming back, and how I felt like there's more spiritual warfare from coming back the first year, just because when you're there, you're living for God every day of every second and every minute. And you come back and you're like, oh, I'm behind the computer screen now for 8 hours. And it doesn't feel very fulfilling. And so that was kind of a struggle for my first year. This year, I had a much smoother kind of re-entry back into society. But I think what was difficult this year was just managing my own expectations, because I had been there already. And so that was part of that submittance piece of what God was teaching me, was that I need, I need Him. I need to make Him a priority and not make it about me. I need to be submitted about Him. And that's uncomfortable because we're human, we're flawed, and I'm human and I'm flawed. So, I think what was hard for me was, like wrestling with my own selfishness in a way, and trying to combat that with the Holy Spirit and His help. I'd say the most exciting part of this trip for me at the beginning was to come back and hopefully find these previous relationships that we had started in the last year. And that did happen, just not to the degree that I had hoped it to be. But what was really exciting was just how quickly on this trip specifically, just how quickly we were able to jump into relationship with the students, and specifically me with one of my new friends over there, and just build a connection with him, and really try and share as much of Jesus with him as I could, as quickly as I could, for that week that I was there. And so that was really exciting, just being able to see that they saw a value in me being there, which was really cool. Yeah, this relationship with this individual, and I kind of started out being a little awkward. You know, it always is, where it's just like, hey, we're new. What are you doing here? You're American. I'm in this country, and I'm trying to learn thermodynamics, and I'm here for school, but you're here for what? This is an English club, but you're a part of a church. And so that was kind of like the hurdle. And then he was a very knowledgeable, like wanted to be as wise as he could be. And I totally feel the same way. Like I want to be as wise as I can be. And so we kind of had that same little head balance of where we wanted to, be knowledgeable and be wise. But what differed between him and I was just, I was living from a place of having the Holy Spirit in me. He wanted to just keep getting to know me and get to know what wisdom. He thought I was like he wanted to get to know me, and he was very intrigued by the wisdom that I could give him. And it really wasn't the wisdom that I could give him. It was just my experience with Jesus. And so he was very drawn to these what seemed affluent things to him, but were just really my testimony. And so it was really cool to be able to share how God has been working, and the perspectives of God and the Bible. And he was really drawn to that. And I think he struggles with, taking that next step of faith, but he was really on par with, okay, that is wise. Jesus is a very wise guy. He is so knowledgeable. And so we were really on that headspace for a long time. And so there was that barrier of faith that we were trying to get over, and I'm still in communication with him today. So I'm hoping that through a group chat, we can continue this conversation. And I was able to give him a Bible and one of our bands that we use for evangelism. And so I'm very hopeful, and I'm praying for him. If somebody came to me and was asking me if they should go next year, I would say 100% yes. Of course, you want to feel like you want to for sure feel like there's a value in it. And I can tell you that there is, just because of my own experience. And even like my first year, I felt called, and this year I felt led. It doesn't always have to be coming from the same place. You just have to be submitted. And so I think if you're willing to take the step to be uncomfortable, I would say this is absolutely worth it, because your faith will grow, your relationship with God will be strengthened, and you'll be able to see moves of faith, which is amazing. They have gelato in Italy, which is amazing. Plus, you're not just eating Italian food, you would think, but I had sushi, I had Peruvian food, I had all this different stuff. It's good. It's good. If you just want to eat some good food, if that's another reason why you want to come to Italy, come for the food and the company. The company's good too. Mostly the food.
All right, and that brings us back to me. I'm really thankful that we were able to get the entire team together to share their thoughts, and it was really wonderful getting to hear everyone and their different perspectives on the trip. It was a truly special time, I think, for me and for everyone involved. As for me, I made the decision last year that I was going to go on this trip. Mike had asked, each of the last few years if I was interested in going, and I kind of kept putting it off. A couple years ago, I ended up going to Ukraine instead, and then last year the timing didn't quite work out, but I told him that I would plan for it this year, and so I did, and so I kind of just knew this is what I was going to be doing. I was going to be going to Italy. I think the most exciting part of the trip for me was just the people. going into the trip, one of the things that Mike and I had talked about was how, as much as these trips had to have an impact on the people we're trying to reach, they also have as much, if not more, of an impact on the team that's going. And so with that, we had this talk about having a discipleship focus, and that was really what was exciting to me, because that was really what's been on my heart over the last several years, especially with helping to lead the young adults group. So we've been working through and talking about how do we raise up young leaders in the church and start making disciples who make disciples. And so it was just really cool to see how God used every single person on this trip in a unique way and stretched them and grew them beyond what they were capable of on their own. And we get to really rely on one another and learn from one another and be on mission together in a hyper-focused setting. So it was really cool to just see how that played out, because I think what the Lord was teaching me through this trip was just that this was what we were made for. To live life on mission for Jesus in community. You know, we're nonstop on the go, constantly engaged in really difficult, intense spiritual conversations and running on very little sleep throughout the week. But somehow it was just one of the most joyful and energized experiences of my life. There's a little bit of a bug going around with the group. I think Mike, Ethan, Noah, and Zelphia all caught it at some point in the trip. And what you'll notice is that not a single person mentioned that as the most difficult part of the trip for them. Then Danny was going through her battle of cutting out nicotine. Jen had a bunch of dietary restrictions that prevented her from being able to eat with the group, and so she had to wait until the end of the day most of the time. Micah was battling a severe case of eczema on his wrist. And despite all of this, every single member of this group served the Lord faithfully and joyfully throughout the entire week. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you." When we live on mission, we are living for our true calling, right? And all of our physical needs will be taken care of. And we can endure so much hardship when the joy of eternal purpose is set before us. So why should you go? Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that it'll be good for you to go, or that it'll be a ton of fun, even though it will be both of those things. But I'm actually going to take it a step further and say if you're serious about your faith, if you're serious about following Jesus, then going on mission is not just a suggestion; it's a requirement. Jesus didn't suggest that you go and make disciples; he commanded it. A lot of times we talk about what we are saved from, but we forget to talk about what we're saved for, and this is it. This is what we were made for. There's no greater joy than going on mission and experiencing the love and unity of doing it with your brothers and sisters in Christ. Not everyone can go overseas and do this kind of a trip, but thankfully there are ways that you can participate now. You can support mission trips by giving financially, or you can sign up for MTOC, which is coming up, which is an opportunity for us to do this very thing together as an entire church, to the people that we live in and around, and continue to do this as a lifestyle, not just as a 1 week thing. And so that's going to be our focus over the next couple weeks. Pastor Rob is going to join us for the next 2 weeks as we do kind of a two-parter on how to share the gospel and what that looks like, what prevents us from doing that, and then what are some different ways that we can actually go about doing that. But if you're interested in signing up for MTOC, go to our website and find the details for that. But yeah, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like us to address in regards to outreach, please send those in to us at podcast@hometownchurch.com. But for now, that's all we got for you. Thank you if you stuck through this entire episode. We're very, very thankful for you. And we'll see you next week. Bye.